I am Evangeline Mortimer, 24 years old, and I suppose my story begins with the moment that changed everything. When my husband Gabriel Ravenshollow publicly announced his intention to take my half-sister as his equal wife, everyone advised me to be magnanimous. I said simply, either take her as a concubine or grant me a divorce. An equal wife? Don't even think about it. The entire family glared at me with fury, declaring that I lacked tolerance and couldn't even accommodate my own sister. My mother-in-law spoke with icy coldness. You have been married into this house for over 3 years and still have no son beneath your knees. This already constitutes grounds for the 7 grounds for divorce. That we haven't given you a letter of dismissal shows the Ravenshollow family's mercy. Now we merely wish to elevate Serafina to equal wife status, yet you remain unyielding. You truly don't know what's good for you. Here I was, Evangeline, the legitimate daughter of the Mortimer family, married into the Ravenshollow household as the principal wife, now relegated beneath a concubine's daughter and addressed as the Ravenshollow family's young Mortimer woman. The Ravenshollow family truly had no regard for proper order. I could only laugh coldly in my heart. My mother-in-law had been bedridden with chronic illness for years. Since I married into the Ravenshollow family, I had devoted myself wholeheartedly to serving her, carefully attending to her 3 daily meals and bringing in renowned physicians to treat her condition, which gradually restored her health. Her ailment was unsuitable for rich meats and heavy foods, requiring instead simple fare. Even so, I went to great lengths to make the meals appetizing. Yet my mother-in-law seemed ungrateful, frequently complaining to Gabriel that I was stinting on her provisions. After my half-sister, Serafina, arrived, she secretly slipped the old lady favorite delicacies behind my back. Mandarin fish today, dongpo pork tomorrow, crystal pork knuckle the day after. I had scolded Serafina many times over this, but it only made the old lady more displeased, convinced that I was miserly over a few silver coins. My mother had died young, and when I married into the Ravenshollow family, I had genuinely regarded the old lady as my own mother. If things continued this way, who knew how long her body could endure? Seeing my silence, my sister-in-law Isadora rolled her eyes at me. Second sister-in-law, I don't mean to criticize you, but you've been throwing your weight around daily, making the whole family listen to you. Now my second brother merely wants to take an equal wife, yet you're being completely unreasonable. If word gets out, people will truly mock my second brother for being weak and having to look at his wife's face to get by. How will we Ravenshollow children ever arrange marriages in the future? Gabriel's expression grew even more unsightly upon hearing this. Isadora was 16 and of marriageable age. I had already asked familiar ladies to help find suitable matches. The year before last, we had settled on a family from the prestigious circles of the capital. Though a collateral branch, the young man's father had already achieved mid-level official rank. Word was that due to his merit in flood control, the court intended to transfer him back to the capital for a position promising unlimited prospects. Moreover, the young man himself was exceptionally diligent and upright, with impeccable family background and moral standing. But just as my mother-in-law was about to hand over the birth charts to the matchmaker, Isadora burst out and drove the woman away, then cursed me vehemently, saying I had a malicious heart and wanted to tear her apart from Ambrose Sterling. Ambrose Sterling? Only then did I learn that Isadora had long been secretly communicating with Ambrose Sterling, the impoverished scholar who rented a residence in our family's neighboring courtyard. Though Ambrose came from humble circumstances, he had passed the scholar examinations early and rented a residence in the alley next to the Ravenshollow house to run a private school, teaching while preparing for the imperial examinations. If Ambrose truly had intentions toward Isadora, he could have openly approached our family to propose marriage. Whether successful or not, it would have been the proper path. This private exchange of affections was improper. As a scholar, Ambrose surely understood how important a woman's reputation was. I looked down on Ambrose from the bottom of my heart and repeatedly urged Isadora with earnest words to break off relations with him, only to earn my sister-in-law's resentment. Instead, after my half-sister arrived, she often provided cover and created opportunities for Isadora and Ambrose to meet. The more grateful the two were to my half-sister, the more they hated and despised me. At this moment, my half-sister stood nearby with tears in her eyes, choking out, "It's all my fault. If not for me, my younger sister wouldn't be unhappy and there wouldn't be discord in the household." "Gabriel, forget it. I'll pack my belongings immediately and leave the Ravens Hollow family." My half-sister greatly resembled her birth mother, Lady Jasmine, with almond eyes, peach cheeks, and a charming, captivating manner that inspired pity. Gabriel looked at her with heartache. "If you leave the Ravens Hollow family, where could you go? Back to that man-eating place in Jinzhou?" The powerful family in Jinzhou was indeed a great household. The current principal wife of the main branch had grown up as intimate friends with my deceased mother. Though this lady had married far away to Jinzhou, she maintained correspondence with my mother. Both became pregnant around the same time and agreed that if one bore a son and the other a daughter, they would become in-laws. Later, my mother died in difficult childbirth, delivering me. When I came of age to fulfill the marriage contract with that family, it was my half-sister who married in my place instead. I heard that when that lady learned of this, she flew into a towering rage and immediately wanted to send my half-sister back to the Mortimer family. But by then, my half-sister had already bowed in the wedding ceremony and consummated the marriage with their son. The young master was quite protective of my half-sister and insisted on not breaking the engagement, making the best of the situation by completing the union. That lady felt quite guilty toward me because of this incident, blaming herself for failing to protect her dear friend's daughter. But fate is unpredictable. Less than 2 years after the young master married my half-sister, he suddenly fell ill and departed this world. Though that family was a great household that particularly valued chastity and virtue, my father was a court official, and there was that connection between the lady and my mother. After my half-sister became a new widow, that family didn't make things too difficult for her. After she completed a year of mourning, they released her to return home. But somehow, after my half-sister returned, rumors circulated that the family had tormented and mistreated their widowed daughter-in-law. When my father sent people to investigate, they found my half-sister with barely half her life remaining. Not wanting his daughter to die young and beautiful, he brought her back. Regarding these groundless accusations, my half-sister made no response, appearing whenever she showed herself with the demeanor of someone traumatized and timid from shock. This made people believe the rumors even more firmly, condemning that family's corrupt inner quarters while showing considerable sympathy for my half-sister. After returning, my half-sister didn't seclude herself, but frequently came to visit me at the Ravens Hollow house. My father, usually busy with government affairs and rarely managing household matters, also wrote instructing me to consider sibling affection and provide extra care for my unfortunate half-sister. Without thinking, I knew this was Lady Jasmine's pillow talk at work. My father had married 4 wives, all of whom died young, earning him the reputation of being a wife killer. He had served in various posts for many years without remarrying, keeping only Lady Jasmine by his side for service. Regarding my half-sister's activities at the Ravens Hollow house, I turned a blind eye. She often praised my good fortune in Gabriel's presence, saying I had married well into a good family. Little did she know that such fortune wasn't something everyone could bear. Regarding the matter of taking an equal wife, I stubbornly refused to budge. My half-sister wept about wanting to return to the Mortimer family, but was earnestly persuaded to stay by Gabriel, his mother, and Isadora. Back in my chamber, Rose served warm tea and asked puzzledly, "Since the young master and the concubine's daughter are mutually affectionate, and you also agree to divorce him, why doesn't he write a divorce document? Though an equal wife is still a wife, she's ultimately a secondary spouse. She's the eldest miss, not the concubine's daughter," I corrected her with a smile. "What kind of eldest miss is she?" Rose muttered quietly. Rose wasn't a household-born servant, nor had she served me since childhood. I had purchased her from a guard company before my marriage. Having grown up in the martial world, she naturally didn't understand the hidden schemes of great household inner quarters. "Do you know how much dowry my birth mother and stepmother left me?" I asked, with a light smile. My birth mother was my father's second wife. Ordinarily, my father, born of an official family, would look down on her merchant background, but he had lost his wife, and when seeking a second marriage, the matches suggested were either concubine daughters from respectable families or legitimate daughters from lesser backgrounds. Though my mother came from a merchant family, they were wealthy enough to rival nations, and her dowry filled 8 large carriages with countless shops and estates under her name. My father relied on the assets my mother brought to advance steadily in his career. In the officialdom, where personal connections were sparse, he carved out a broad path. Unfortunately, before my father could advance far enough, my mother died in difficult childbirth delivering me. Though that enormous dowry remained in the Mortimer family, my father found it quite inconvenient to use, because according to our dynasty's laws, a woman's dowry belonged to her private property and was inherited by her children after her death. My father believed the inner quarters couldn't be without a mistress, mainly to have a new mistress manage the dowry my mother left for the infant me. So he married a third wife. This stepmother came from an ordinary background and devoted all her energy to bearing sons for my father. But man proposes while heaven disposes. When I was 2 years old, Lady Jasmine was the first to give birth to a son. Though born of a concubine, Lady Jasmine truly ascended to glory through this son. Those few years were very difficult for young me. My stepmother didn't favor me, and Lady Jasmine and her daughter also lorded it over me. More troublesome was that the entire family had their eyes on the dowry my mother left me. Fortunately, my stepmother and Lady Jasmine also pulled against each other, neither willing to let the other gain an extra advantage. I survived in this gap between them, until my stepmother also became pregnant. At that time, my little brother was already 3 years old and deeply favored by my father, but father still hoped my stepmother could bear him a legitimate son. The conflict between my stepmother and Lady Jasmine reached white heat after my stepmother's pregnancy. That day, my 6-month pregnant stepmother ate only 1 bowl of lotus root and meat soup before suffering severe abdominal pain, soon showing blood and breaking water. The household hurriedly called a midwife for delivery, but the midwife saw immediately that the expectant mother was not yet 6 months along. This wasn't delivery, this was miscarriage. Neither my stepmother nor the child could be saved. My father was furious. My stepmother had always been in good health with a smooth pregnancy. How could she miscarry? Later, I don't know what he investigated, but in any case, my father let the matter drop, forbidding everyone to mention it again. Not long after, my father married yet another wife. This wife also brought assets into the household with a dowry as generous as my mother's, and this stepmother treated me extremely well. Only later did I learn that this stepmother had known my birth mother. Both had studied arithmetic under the same teacher in their youth. Fate truly works in mysterious ways. After this stepmother arrived, I finally truly enjoyed the dignity and treatment befitting a legitimate daughter. My stepmother shielded me from Lady Jasmine and her family's open and covert attacks, taught me how to handle the schemes of the inner quarters, how to manage household affairs, and how to oversee our properties. Those were the happiest years of my life. Later, my stepmother became pregnant. She pointed to her swelling belly and said with a smile, "My dowry won't enter the public accounts. It's all saved for you and him." I smiled happily and stayed by her side constantly, afraid that something might happen to her and the child in her womb. That day, I went to Lingyun Temple to burn incense and pray for blessings. Half a day, just half a day. When I returned to the estate, my stepmother had already become a cold corpse, along with her unborn child. My eyes burned hot and red, while my heart felt ice-cold and piercing. I asked everyone present what exactly had happened. What had happened? No one knew, only that my stepmother had fallen down the stone steps and died instantly. My father hung his head dejectedly, repeatedly lamenting family misfortune, and didn't dare look me in the eye. It truly was family misfortune because less than 2 years later, my not-yet-adult little brother also died. All the dowries from the mothers my little brother had coveted for so long ultimately became mine. Without exaggeration, my total wealth now exceeded even my own father's. Those assets were all properly listed on my dowry inventory and legally documented as my private property. Divorce a wife? What he'd be divorcing isn't a wife. It's mountains of gold and silver. I skimmed the tea foam and moistened my throat with the tea. Rose pursed her lips. Really can't compare to us wanderers of the martial world being straightforward? Before she finished speaking, the door crashed open with a bang. Before I could see who it was clearly, a shrill voice exploded in my ears. "Second aunt, are you trying to drive eldest aunt to her death? Eldest aunt's eyes are swollen from crying, and she's making a scene about leaving the Ravenshollow family." "Second aunt, how can you be so intolerant?" Eldest aunt, how affectionately she called her. I wonder if their birth mothers knew they had found such a sister for themselves, whether they would be so angry they'd jump out of their graves. Lysander and Celeste were Gabriel's elder brother's children, a pair of twins. Their mother, Lady Aurelia, was an old acquaintance of mine, several years my senior. During our maiden days, she often looked after me like an older sister, and we had always been close. My marriage into the Ravenshollow family was also arranged through her connections, though it ultimately wasn't a good match. Lady Aurelia had been frail since childhood. Pregnancy and childbirth were already a matter of life and death for women, let alone carrying twins. Lady Aurelia's body was severely damaged during delivery. When I married into the Ravenshollow family, Lysander and Celeste were already 4 years old, and Lady Aurelia was like a lamp running out of oil. She grasped my hand and said, "I trust no one in the Ravenshollow family except you. I understand your character best, and only by placing the children in your hands can I be at peace. You must promise me to keep Lysander and Celeste by your side until they come of age." A dying person's entrustment, I solemnly accepted it, promising to raise Lysander and Celeste as my own children from then on. Only then did Lady Aurelia peacefully close her eyes. After Lady Aurelia's death, the Ravenshollow family tacitly agreed to let me raise Lysander and Celeste in my quarters. Gabriel's elder brother conducted business away from home year-round, and hadn't remarried after Lady Aurelia's death. Given Lady Aurelia's deathbed request, he acquiesced and entrusted the 2 children to me. In the first 2 years after my marriage, Gabriel lived at the county academy to prepare for the imperial examinations, returning only once or twice a year. This gave me more time to care for Lysander and Celeste's daily needs. I never shortchanged them in clothing, food, housing, or transportation. When they turned 5, I hired tutors for their education, and at 7, I sent them to the Ravenshollow clan school. Lysander was quite clever but somewhat playful, frequently receiving scolding from his tutor. Naturally, I was also particularly strict with him. Fortunately, his studies advanced by leaps and bounds, earning praise from his tutor, who said that at this rate he could take the imperial examinations within 2 years and try for the county-level scholar examination. The family was very pleased, and their previous dissatisfaction with my strict daily supervision largely dissipated. For Celeste, I also planned to hire a palace-trained governess in a couple of years to teach her proper etiquette, helping her earn a reputation as a refined lady for a good marriage in the future. Later, when my half-sister arrived, compared to me as a strict aunt, the siblings preferred the gentle and considerate half-sister. Because Lysander would take the county scholar examination in 2 years, his tutor gave him and 2 other children special intensive instruction with even more rigorous teaching. When Lysander returned home complaining bitterly, I had never taken it to heart, merely smiling to comfort him a few words before urging him to study in his room. But after my half-sister learned of this, she took Lysander to the private school to argue with the tutor. Why single out Lysander for such heavy coursework that the child couldn't catch his breath? Who would be responsible if the child developed problems from studying? The tutor was an old scholar whom the Ravenshollow clan had hired at great expense from the capital. He had taught countless students and had never encountered such a disrespectful and ungrateful student. He immediately bristled with anger and declared he would no longer teach Lysander. I was stunned when I learned of my half-sister's actions. I hurriedly prepared generous gifts to apologize to the tutor and spent silver to ask the clan leader to help mediate before settling the matter. But when I returned to the Ravenshollow house, my mother-in-law summoned me and said she had heard from my half-sister that in Jinzhou there had been cases of tutors driving students to death through excessive strictness. I heard this tutor at the Ravenshollow private school already had a poor reputation in the capital, pedantic and inflexible. If it won't work out, spend money to find Lysander a better teacher. My mother-in-law valued Lysander most highly. Hearing that he couldn't eat or sleep well due to his studies broke her heart. Mother doesn't know. Though this tutor is strict, the students he produces are extremely renowned. He's produced several top examination graduates alone. I patiently explained to my mother-in-law that this tutor came to teach at the Ravenshollow clan school was because a scholar in the capital owed him a life-saving debt, which convinced him to become a teacher for the Ravenshollow children. Being able to receive this tutor's instruction is a fortune one couldn't even pray for. But what fortune? I think it's just that sister-in-law is reluctant to spend that extra money, Isadora sneered from the side. Even I know the principle of teaching according to individual ability. Others might succeed under that tutor, but my Lysander has headaches daily, no appetite for food, and can't sleep peacefully. This is driving the child to death. I suppose since he's not your own flesh and blood, you don't feel heartache. I had always paid attention to Lysander's food, clothing, and daily life. Where was this lack of appetite? Fearing he might get indigestion, I often limited his dinner portions. Sleepless nights were even more nonsensical. He went to bed on schedule and had to be coaxed repeatedly to get up in the morning. At night, thunder wouldn't wake him. I quietly said, "Hasn't everything been fine all along?" Lysander immediately glared at me with fury as if he wanted to devour me alive. My half-sister hugged him comfortingly and whispered in his ear, "Poor dear, eldest aunt loves you." Lysander immediately buried himself in my half-sister's arms and began wailing, "I miss my birth mother." At these words, the atmosphere in the room suddenly became very delicate. My mother-in-law looked at me with suspicious, scrutinizing eyes, as if trying to find evidence of my mistreating her grandson. That very night, my mother-in-law wrote to Gabriel's elder brother, who was conducting business in the capital. At that time, Gabriel had just moved back from the academy to the Ravens Hollow house to concentrate on preparing for the following year's major examination. Using the excuse of not affecting Gabriel's studies and our couple's prospects for children, my mother-in-law took Lysander and Celeste to live in her quarters. Her health was originally poor. She simply couldn't raise young children, let alone two of them. Initially, my half-sister claimed to fear the old lady's health couldn't handle it and went to her quarters every few days to help care for the children. Later, she simply moved into the old lady's quarters to live with the children. After Gabriel returned from the academy, he went to the old lady's quarters daily to pay his respects and show filial piety. Later, when tired from studying, he would also go to my mother-in-law's quarters, as if there were some refreshing medicine there. Each time he returned from my mother-in-law's place, he seemed refreshed and in spring-like spirits. Once I secretly followed him there and saw Gabriel, his siblings, and Lysander's siblings gathered around my mother-in-law, chatting and laughing. My half-sister smiled gently nearby, pouring tea and serving snacks for everyone, even thoughtfully feeding pastries into Gabriel's mouth as if he were completely helpless. Watching this harmonious family scene, I was deeply moved and nearly smiled aloud. Watching Lysander bring Celeste to my room in anger to accuse and enumerate my crimes, with the attitude of standing up for my half-sister, I only found it amusing. Lysander, do you know? You're excellent scholar material. You're even more capable than your second uncle. The words you just used to accuse your aunt flowed so eloquently they could constitute a fine denunciation. Lysander probably hadn't expected me to say this and stood stunned for a moment, his face flushed red. That's because the new teacher taught well. Indeed, I nodded. Your scholarship is coming along nicely, but you still need to learn more about being a proper person. I didn't want to listen to Lysander's continued chattering and turned my gaze to Celeste standing behind him. Celeste had been keeping her head down behind Lysander, showing neither anger nor joy. I beckoned, calling her forward. What do you think? I asked gently, knowing she understood I was asking about my half-sister's situation. While I had always been strict with Lysander, I was quite lenient with Celeste. Unlike boys who would bear family responsibilities, she only needed to distinguish right from wrong and avoid being bullied in her future husband's family, so even though she studied alongside Lysander, her burden was much lighter. I had additionally hired masters to teach her music, chess, and needlework. But my half-sister said women must know one or two dance pieces to have graceful figures and light steps that would capture their husbands' hearts. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Lady Jasmine had taught her plenty of dance pieces at home. So my half-sister would teach Isadora and Celeste to dance in her free time, often choosing moments when Gabriel would pass by. Celeste showed no particular attitude toward this, neither resistance nor expressed liking. Now seeing my question, she glanced up at me, then quickly lowered her head again, not daring to meet my eyes, softly saying, "I'm sorry." I understood in my heart and nodded, seemingly accepting her apology. "You should return now. I'll consider this matter further." I waved my hand, and Rose pushed and pulled them both out the door. Looking at their disappearing figures, Rose couldn't help but curse. Look at these ungrateful creatures that great households produce. Miss, you should open your eyes. You've fallen into a wolf's den, a whole family of ungrateful wolves. Just then, the maid Lily entered from outside and whispered a few words in my ear. I unconsciously raised my eyebrows. What did Manager Joe say? Manager Joe said, as expected, the 20 to 30 shops in Heijian have all been tampered with. Cleaning up won't be difficult, but the person behind it all... I naturally knew who this person was, but it wasn't appropriate to alert them yet. Not only should we not alert them, we should give her more sweet benefits. Send the dozens of estates in Longnan and Jiangbei to her as well. Have Manager Wu handle this matter. He's most familiar with that area. Oh yes, I also needed to write a letter to my father, who was serving as an official in his post. I didn't know what stage Lady Jasmine's pillow talk had reached, but I needed to coordinate with her. Because I opposed Gabriel taking an equal wife, he was very cold toward me, sleeping in his study for several consecutive days, showing every intention of never speaking to me again unless I relented. According to our dynasty's laws, men over 40 without sons could take equal wives, or they could do so with the principal wife's consent in writing, endorsed by the official authorities. Since I disagreed to provide such endorsement, my half-sister couldn't marry into the Ravenshollow family as she wished. I heard that my half-sister prepared late-night snacks and delivered them to the study daily, staying for 2 or 3 hours each time, sometimes not leaving until dawn. Honestly, I truly admired my half-sister. While Gabriel studied at the county academy, he couldn't adapt to the academy dormitories, so he rented a separate residence outside and secretly kept a beautiful woman there without the family's knowledge. Gabriel maintained this golden house for 2 years, but in the end, he didn't bring the beauty back home and still kept her in the separate residence, apparently not wanting to give her official status. To be honest, Gabriel wasn't a lustful person. He devoted most of his energy to his studies. Don't think that Gabriel was the only one in his family to pass the provincial examinations. Many Ravenshollow clan members served as officials in the capital, with some even reaching cabinet level. The Ravenshollow clan had an unwritten rule. Those capable of learning would pursue official careers, while those unsuited for study would engage in commerce. The merchants' profits would support those in official careers, funding their studies and official networking. Those who achieved scholarly success would not only provide certain conveniences to Ravenshollow merchants, but also support each other mutually. This included marriage connections, all forming tight-knit groups to create powerful chains of interest. As long as Gabriel passed next year's metropolitan examinations, the clan members at court would immediately use all their connections to open the most convenient path for his promotion. Precisely for this reason, when my half-sister replaced me in the marriage arrangement, and I was matched with Gabriel, though from a merchant background, but already having passed the provincial examinations, my father, after careful consideration, still agreed. If even my father could understand that Gabriel would inevitably soar to great heights with unlimited prospects, Gabriel himself understood this even more clearly. He studied day and night for nothing more than that moment of success in the imperial examinations. Yet, at this crucial time, he was willing to tear his face with me over my half-sister, wanting to elevate her to equal wife status. I didn't know whether to call him passionate or heartless. However, one thing was certain, my half-sister certainly had excellent methods. And indeed, after more than a month of absence, Gabriel appeared, followed by the tender-as-water, pitifully delicate half-sister. The rock sugar bird's nest soup I held was specially brought back from Longnan by Manager Wu, cooked with powdered pearls from the East Sea. Now it had lost all flavor. I set down the bowl, wiped my mouth, and watched the two with composed interest. I saw my half-sister immediately kneel before me without a word. Gabriel felt terrible heartache and tried to help her up, but she stopped him. "I have to kneel anyway. After all, I've wronged my younger sister." As she spoke, tears as large as beans slid down my half-sister's face, creating a scene of absolute tragic beauty. I sensed this would be quite a performance and dared not steal her spotlight, quietly watching her. I know younger sister feels upset in her heart. I don't want to compete with younger sister for the position of principal wife. Gabriel and I truly love each other with sincere hearts. As long as I can spend my life with Gabriel, I'm willing to serve younger sister like a slave. never overstepping by half a step. See how she cleared herself completely. Gabriel loved her. I was the one obstructing them. She had done nothing wrong, just a meek little white flower who accepted everything. Moreover, my younger sister and I are now even, she added quietly. I raised an eyebrow. How so? Originally, I didn't want to say this, but I cannot bear to watch Gabriel feel guilty toward younger sister over the equal wife matter. My half-sister looked at Gabriel with tearful eyes. Gabriel looked at her with heartache, then turned to glare at me fiercely. This face-changing speed truly amazed me. Let's hear it. I accepted the Angsing Golden Junmei tea Rose handed me and tasted it. This year's flavor was better than previous years, so I drank several more sips. Originally, younger sister should have married into that Jinzhou family, but younger sister learned early that their young master already suffered from a grave illness with uncertain fate, so she schemed to have me marry in her place. It was also my unfortunate fate to become widowed shortly after marriage. At this point, my half-sister was sobbing uncontrollably. I don't blame younger sister. Taking on this suffering for her is what I, as an elder sister, should do. My heart lurched. How did she know I had schemed for her to marry into that family? Looking again at my half-sister crying so pitifully, her eyes flickered with a hint of triumphant cunning. So she didn't actually know the truth. She was simply trying to frame me with false accusations. She never would have imagined that everything she was falsely accusing me of was actually true. That powerful family was a cesspool. All their men were worthless creatures. The principal wife of the main branch was weak-willed. Though called the principal wife of the main branch, the actual mistress of the household was the second branch's wife. That family's young master had indeed been betrothed to me while we were still in the womb. But after my mother died, that family never mentioned the matter again. The family had chosen a girl from a major Jinzhou household for their son, but before they could exchange the formal betrothal documents, the young master fell ill. The illness came like a landslide. Several waves of renowned physicians couldn't cure him, and his condition fluctuated between better and worse. The second branch's wife suggested to the principal wife that they should marry a bride to bring good fortune. Perhaps the young master's illness would improve. The principal wife was most easily swayed and, thinking it over, realized that I, far away, of good family background, and motherless, was the ideal choice. Though that family was rotten inside, they still maintained the facade of being Jinzhou's foremost family. When their betrothal gifts and formal proposal came through a matchmaker, Lady Jasmine and my half-sister's eyes went straight. Of course, that family kept the young master's illness secret. I deliberately had people highlight that family's glamorous side for Lady Jasmine and her daughter. What an honor it would be to become the principal wife of the main branch's eldest grandson. Lady Jasmine and her daughter believed this completely, and once such obsession took hold, it was hard to eradicate. Lady Jasmine immediately began whispering in my father's ear. Lady Jasmine and my half-sister still believe to this day that my half-sister's successful marriage to Jinzhou was due to Lady Jasmine's pillow talk being effective, showing my father's boundless love for Lady Jasmine and my half-sister, thus allowing them to substitute one for the other. Little did they know that though my father had lost 4 wives and earned the reputation of wife-killer with no one daring to marry him again, leaving only Lady Jasmine by his side for service, what he valued most was still his own official career. For him, no matter how favored, a concubine and concubine's daughter could never be as important as a legitimate daughter. A concubine's daughter usurping a legitimate daughter's marriage was absolutely unacceptable. The legitimate daughter represented the Mortimer family's status. I privately found my father and talked with him all night. after which he agreed to let my half-sister marry into that family in my place. I said, "Father, as the Mortimer family's legitimate daughter, my marriage should greatly benefit Father's career to be called a good match." My father thought I had a spirit of sacrifice and praised me thoroughly. After my half-sister married out, my father indeed began considering his own future, planning to marry me to his direct superior as a second wife, a man over 50, even older than my father, who not only held high office himself, but whose grandson served as the Crown Prince's study companion. At that time, Lysander and Celeste's mother, Lady Aurelia, learned of my predicament and actively helped arrange my marriage into the Ravenshollow family. I understood Lady Aurelia's intentions. Knowing her time was limited, she simply wanted to find someone trustworthy to marry into the Ravenshollow family and help care for the twins. Lady Aurelia had several sisters of good character, but she couldn't bear to have her dear relatives marry into the Ravenshollow family. Having lived there for several years, she had seen through the Ravenshollow family completely. They were not good people. I didn't mind Lady Aurelia's scheming. Compared to that cunning old man whose family were all high ministers, the Ravenshollow family was a decent choice for me. To persuade my father, I actively contributed a very small portion of my birth mother's private assets to the public fund and expressed that whenever the family needed silver for various arrangements, I would cover it. Anyone can make grand promises. When my stepmother was alive, she had divided my birth mother's and her own dowries into several portions, some real, some fictitious, and handed them to me. No one could clearly know exactly what properties I owned, only that it was a considerable sum. When I first arrived at the Ravenshollow family, I had thought perhaps I could spend my life with Gabriel. After all, he was diligent, progressive, and accomplished at a young age. As long as he didn't betray me, I could be good to him and his family. So I continued playing the virtuous wife, being filial to my mother-in-law, friendly with my husband's brothers and sisters, and caring for the family's children. Later, I gradually learned about the Ravenshollow family members' characters. They were all heartless people, impossible to warm no matter how much care you gave them. All the thought and silver I spent was like feeding dogs. I was no longer willing to waste even a fraction on the Ravenshollow family members. Every moment I stayed in the Ravenshollow family was torment for me. Moreover, by accident, I discovered a shocking secret about the Ravenshollow family. Going to Jinzhou to bring my half-sister back was my secret arrangement. I had sent the household manager to Jinzhou to investigate the situation. That powerful family was indeed even more corrupt than I had imagined. Not only was my half-sister, the new widow, confined to the inner quarters, but the second branch master climbed over the courtyard wall every night to have private meetings with her. I had the manager deliberately run into the second branch master while he was climbing into bed, completely humiliating the family. They couldn't continue detaining my half-sister and had to let her return home. After my half-sister returned, she didn't dare speak much about that family's affairs, fearing people would uncover the details. I was satisfied with my half-sister's fighting ability. In just 6 months, she had completely conquered the Ravenshollow family and was only waiting for Gabriel to write me a divorce document. Though I had supported the Ravenshollow family financially over these years, I had been somewhat stingy about it. After all, no one's money fell from the sky. Well, although mine sort of did. But I had merchant blood flowing in my bones. I valued returns. For people like the Ravenshollow family, who wanted to suck your blood but could never be warmed, every silver coin I invested in them meant a blood loss to me. But my half-sister was different. She was very generous to the Ravenshollow family. Lady Jasmine must have privately given her quite a lot of money to help her establish a firm foothold in the Ravenshollow family. Initially, she truly only wanted to be an equal wife. My dowry was in the Ravenshollow family. If she married into the Ravenshollow family and firmly grasped Gabriel's heart, wouldn't that be equivalent to grasping my dowry? Later, Lady Jasmine extended her reach toward my obvious properties and gained considerable benefits. Thinking she had already controlled the situation, she developed thoughts of replacing me entirely. My half-sister should have privately reached agreements with the Ravenshollow family to fully finance all of Gabriel's future official career expenses. This way, even if Gabriel married my half-sister and divorced me, the dowry would still remain in the Ravenshollow family, just changing hands to become my half-sister's property. Moreover, my half-sister was much more generous than I was. When my half-sister accused me of scheming to have her marry in my place, Gabriel stood beside her cursing me as vicious, saying a poisonous woman like me didn't deserve divorce. I should be cast out. I couldn't help but laugh out loud and clap for their performance. Want to cast me out? Gabriel, don't forget my father is a court official. Casting me out would be slapping his face. A flash of cunning and mockery crossed my half-sister's eyes as she advised, Gabriel, younger sister is right. Even if father is disappointed in her and doesn't want to manage her affairs, she is still my sister, father's daughter. Hearing my half-sister say this, Gabriel became even more convinced. Father-in-law serves the court loyally and can distinguish right from wrong. He absolutely won't show favoritism. How do you know he won't? I said with a smile. You're joining with a concubine's daughter to cast out a legitimately married daughter. Tell me, will people believe what I say or what a concubine's daughter says? Tell me, in the imperial court, are there more officials born legitimate or born of concubines? Tell me, will their wives support the legitimate daughter or the concubine's daughter? The Ravenshollow family has many officials at court. Oh yes, that cabinet elder is also your Ravenshollow clan member. Tell me, holding such high office, might he have political enemies? Tell me, will they impeach your Ravenshollow family for poor household management and improper family order? Tell me, will Gabriel's future official path be smooth? Ah, no. Will there even be a path to walk? Cold sweat broke out on Gabriel's forehead. He gritted his teeth, his eyes vicious. What exactly do you want? I was truly stunned by his stupidity. I've said it. I only want divorce. Stop creating so much trouble. See, this is what the cold-hearted Ravenshollow family was like. They didn't even want to give me final dignity, insisting on casting me out. Even in ordinary families, as long as things didn't go too far, they would generally choose divorce, allowing the wife to return home with dignity for everyone. Those who cast out wives were being too ruthless and usually had trouble remarrying. Gabriel grudgingly wrote me a divorce document in triplicate. I happily took it to the authorities to get it stamped and signed. According to our dynasty's laws, those cast out were remarried at the discretion of fathers and brothers. Those divorced could manage their own remarriage. From now on, my marriage was my own decision. No one could arrange it. I hummed a little tune and brought over 10 servants back to the Ravenshollow family to pack my belongings. Young and old from the Ravenshollow family all came running to watch me with predatory eyes. Seeing me about to empty the Ravenshollow house piece by piece, Isadora couldn't help but come out to stop me. You shameless woman, what right do you have to take things from my Ravenshollow family? I waved the documents in my hand and said with a smile, Can't read? It's written here in black and white. These are all my dowry items, inventoried and signed by your Ravenshollow family. Gabriel was angry, but dared not speak, only looking at my half-sister and using his eyes to ask what was going on. Hadn't she said everything had been transferred to her? Though my half-sister was also upset, she maintained her composure and comforted everyone. Let her go. They're all empty shells anyway. She'll have plenty to cry about later. I really couldn't help wanting to laugh. After all these years, this mother-daughter pair still hadn't improved at all. Stupid and evil. I didn't leave behind a single item I had purchased for the Ravens Hollow family. The antique ornaments in the old lady's room, Isadora's jewelry and accessories, the famous calligraphy and paintings in Gabriel's study, anything I had personally paid for, I took. As I said before, no one's money falls from the sky. The Ravens Hollow family members chased me cursing all the way to the main gate, only stopping when people began gathering to watch. Ignoring the Ravens Hollow family's curses and imprecations against me, I called 10 carriages to haul everything back to one of the residences I had acquired in the southern part of the city. After living in the southern residence for 2 days, I secretly transferred everything I had brought back to an estate in the western suburbs. This estate was purchased before my marriage, staffed entirely with my own people. The neighboring farmers and guards were all carefully selected by me. After living several comfortable days at the estate, I returned to the Mortimer family. My father sent a letter thoroughly scolding me, saying I shouldn't have been so willful. Though our dynasty was generally tolerant of divorced women, it still damaged one's reputation. Particularly since his 3-year term was ending and he was at a crucial period for performance evaluation and promotion, gossip might negatively impact his assessment. I immediately sent him 10,000 taels of silver. My father's second letter had a much gentler tone, telling me to simply live at home. If anyone dared gossip about me, he would tear their mouths apart. He also said he would arrange a good marriage for me in the future and told me not to argue with my half-sister. If Gabriel succeeded in the future examinations and they served at court together, we would still be one family. I found this ridiculous. The shops in Hejian and the estates in Longnan and Jiangbei, I quickly reclaimed them all. That fool Samuel Liu was still dreaming of being a master when he was dragged to the authorities and beaten black and blue. After my stepmother's death, Lady Jasmine had recommended Samuel Liu to manage the properties my mothers had left, thoroughly praising Samuel Liu's abilities. She said that as an unmarried young lady, I shouldn't dirty my hands with such vulgar affairs. Since we couldn't trust outsiders and couldn't feel secure, why not let her cousin Samuel Liu manage them? I readily agreed. Samuel Liu, as chief steward, was praised to the skies by the subordinate managers. He often boasted, "I must properly manage my nephew's properties. These will all be his in the future." Still quite clear-headed, not floating enough yet. I told the subordinate managers to let him have whatever he wanted, creating the illusion that this entire vast enterprise was completely under his control. Indeed, Samuel Liu truly believed he controlled everything. He treated Lady Jasmine's inquiries and urgings with disdain, repeatedly brushing her off by saying he had succeeded and all the properties were already in his grasp. Lady Jasmine deeply believed this as well. My managers took false documents to report to the authorities, and Samuel Liu was quickly arrested. Samuel Liu's family found Lady Jasmine to make trouble. Lady Jasmine had no solution and could only have my half-sister find me. It was deep winter. I wrapped myself in white fox fur and held a gold and silver charcoal hand warmer, saying to my half-sister who had come to my door, "Though I'm the victim, we are family after all. As long as the embezzled silver is repaid, I won't pursue the matter." My half-sister ground her teeth in fury, her hand supporting her swelling belly, her face showing complete exhaustion. "Where would we get so much silver? One should be forgiving when possible. Don't you have no losses at all right now?" I squinted and studied my half-sister, looking until she became angry and irritated. "I'm talking to you. What are you staring at?" I said with a smile, looking at just how thick your face really is. My half-sister immediately flared up. "Don't forget you're just a divorced woman. What right do you have to speak of me? I think the thick-faced person is you. If little brother hadn't died young, would those properties have fallen to you? Keep dreaming. Indeed, that little beast deserved to die early. Originally, he didn't have to die so soon. At that time, when the powerful Jinjo family came to propose marriage, the three of them were in the room discussing how to replace me. Just kill her outright, like last time. Push her down the stone steps and let her fall to her death. Even if father finds out, he still can't do anything to me. My little brother's proud voice came from inside the room. No, that rose she bought from the guard company is quite formidable. Ordinary people can hardly get near her. Lady Jasmine rejected this idea. Why not do as we did to stepmother? One bowl of medicine will settle it. That was my half-sister's vicious voice. Lady Jasmine was still unsatisfied. Now that family is living in the estate. If she dies of poisoning, it will definitely be discovered. I didn't want to listen anymore and left with clenched fists. My little brother had a group of worthless friends, and they often sought pleasure together. Dealing with him wasn't difficult. That time he went mountain climbing with a group of friends. When they reached the summit, the group drank wine and made merry, all becoming unsteady on their feet. While he went alone to relieve himself, I had someone knock him unconscious and throw him off the cliff. When he was discovered, he had already been smashed to pieces, completely cold. Thinking of my little brother's appearance at death, my mood became cheerful. I told my half-sister that if Samuel Liu didn't repay the embezzled silver, he should wait for the authorities to interrogate him. If he then confessed to people or matters he shouldn't mention, that wouldn't be my concern. My half-sister left in a huff. Perhaps Samuel Liu's family made too much trouble, because eventually Lady Jasmine and my half-sister scraped together the silver to make up the shortfall. I originally thought this matter was concluded, but unexpectedly, my half-sister came to my door again. You only need to provide 5,000 taels of silver. I picked at my ear. Are you asking me to lend money or return money? Isadora is to be married after the new year, but Ambrose can't produce much for the betrothal gifts. Yet Isadora wants 1,000 taels as her dowry. Mother-in-law suffered a stroke a few days ago, and medical treatment will cost quite a lot. Gabriel also needs a large sum for traveling to the capital for the examinations. After all, they were once your family members, living together for 3 years. You can't just ignore them completely. Such heartlessness would also be bad for your reputation. I nearly spat out a mouthful of tea. What does this have to do with me? Now they're your family, not mine. Besides, doesn't Gabriel's elder brother conduct business abroad? How could he not have money? It's just that he's gotten used to spending my money. Seeing me speak so bluntly and expose her, my half-sister became somewhat angry from embarrassment. Asking you to provide some money, and you're being so calculating. Don't you think about your current situation? If you help the Ravenshollow family with money now, they will remember your kindness in the future. I rolled my eyes internally. Let the Ravenshollow family's kindness be yours to enjoy. I had Rose fetch 100 taels of silver to give my half-sister and sent her away. Had the Ravenshollow family really reached the end of their resources? I quickly sent people to investigate the Ravenshollow family's situation. This investigation was no small matter. It shocked me into a cold sweat. Thank goodness I had run away quickly. The Ravenshollow family was about to be finished. Over 6 months ago, I had noticed something wrong with Gabriel's elder brother's business accounts. They weren't the records of a legitimate merchant. So I quietly paid attention and discovered he was actually engaged in smuggling weapons, which immediately terrified me. If this came to light, it would be a capital crime requiring house confiscation. To escape the Ravenshollow family as quickly as possible, I orchestrated this divorce, but I never imagined that behind the Ravenshollow family's weapons smuggling, there were countless connections to the fourth prince. Now that problems arose with the business, the Ravenshollow family naturally came forward to take the blame. The Ravenshollow family was in for great misfortune this time, not only weapons smuggling but also involvement with princes. To speak plainly, this was the great crime of rebellion and treason. The current emperor was no pushover. I wrote a letter and had Rose ride swiftly to personally deliver it to my father. On the third day, when Rose returned, news also came from home that the clan leader, following my father's instructions, had already opened the ancestral hall to remove my half-sister's name from the family records. The action was very swift. Once the ancestral hall opened, the village head brought official documents, stamped and issued as a public notice. It accused my half-sister of disrespecting the legitimate daughter, not maintaining wifely virtue, ruining others' marriages, and bringing shame to the Mortimer clan, thus expelling her from the family records. I heard that upon receiving this news, my half-sister became so angry she clutched her belly and cried out in pain. The doctor was called overnight, and it took all night to calm her down. Gabriel smashed up his study, cursing my father as an old scoundrel, and vowing that when he achieved success and fame, he would make him pay. In spring, Isadora married, my half-sister gave birth, and the Ravenshollow family was once again in complete chaos. I heard that before Isadora's marriage, she pointed at the laboring half-sister's nose and cursed her, calling her a fraud who had deceived the entire Ravenshollow family, a husband-killing, broken household disaster star who had driven away the family's fortune god, cursing her for being unable to provide a dowry and causing her own embarrassment at her in-laws. Gabriel brought back the beauty he had kept outside, apparently because he couldn't afford the rent for that residence. Having been with Gabriel for over 2 years, the beauty understood his temperament completely and served him skillfully. Gabriel also felt more at ease with the beauty, finding her company conducive to his exam preparation. In contrast, seeing my pregnant half-sister only made him irritated. The old lady was now paralyzed in bed. Though her speech was unclear, she still had strength to pinch people and slap faces. When displeased with my half-sister, she would strike her, never standing up for her. My half-sister endured both labor pains and verbal abuse, with not even one person to attend her. While I had people monitor the Ravenshollow family situation, I began scattering and transferring my assets, recalled all the guards from the suburban estate, and prepared to flee at any moment. 6 months later, the Ravenshollow family's crimes were exposed. The court sent numerous soldiers to arrest them. The entire Ravenshollow family was imprisoned, Gabriel's elder brother was sentenced to execution, the other men were sentenced to exile, and the women were confiscated as slaves. I heard that Ambrose, to distance himself from the Ravenshollow family, drove out the 6-month pregnant Isadora to wander the streets. Another year passed, and spring arrived. I was now in Leaching, in the south. Rose had people bring several small shrubs, saying these were a new variety called 4 Seasons osmanthus that bloomed year-round with fragrance reaching thousands of miles, quite beautiful. The people delivering the flowers all kept their heads down with faint brand marks on their faces. One person hastily glanced up at me, then quickly lowered her head again. "Wait a moment," I called to them. "Where are you all from?" The leading woman quickly smiled obsequiously. "We servants are all from the flower house on East Street." I pointed to one person. "I happen to need help in my garden. Could I keep her to help me tend things?" The woman smiled fawningly. "If the lady needs help, this servant will select a suitable one for you. This girl is too inexperienced and might not work well, possibly offending you." I waved my hand. "No matter, I'll take her." After everyone left, I had Rose bring Celeste inside. "When did you arrive in Licheng?" I asked her. "Initially sentenced to the entertainment quarters, but the people there found me stupid and sold me to the official broker. After several transfers, I arrived in Licheng 2 months ago." Though Celeste had experienced tremendous upheaval, she remained as composed and steady as before. Given that she had learned dance from my half-sister for so long, she certainly couldn't be the stupid person the entertainment quarter claimed. Her coming to see me today was probably intentional. "Speak, what do you want?" I wanted to see what she was really up to. Celeste didn't wail or plead, but calmly described the fate of each Raven's Hollow family member. The old lady died shortly after Gabriel's elder brother was executed. Gabriel and Lysander were exiled thousands of miles away, their fate unknown. My half-sister was sentenced to official slavery and later reportedly bought by a wealthy household as a minor concubine. The merchant couple had strange fetishes, and unable to endure it, my half-sister hanged herself. After Isadora was driven out by her in-laws with nowhere to go, she eventually froze to death on the streets along with her unborn child. What shocked me most was that Celeste had secretly kept and raised the daughter my half-sister had given birth to. I dared not imagine the hardships and difficulties involved. "Very well," I sighed. "I have an estate in the border town of Biandu. I'll give it to you. Take that child there immediately. From now on, you and I have no further connection." Celeste knelt down with tears, silently bowing 3 times to me. After seeing Celeste off, I remembered I needed to send my father a generous red envelope. He was marrying again. The Raven's Hollow affair hadn't greatly affected him, and with the silver I had sent for arrangements, he had successfully remained in the capital and been promoted. Officials absolutely couldn't function without proper inner quarters. Much information was transmitted through wives, and relationships were consolidated through wives. The woman my father married this time was the legitimate daughter of a county magistrate who, due to successive family bereavements, had observed mourning for 3 years twice, thus delaying her marriage. Of course, the information I received was that this legitimate daughter was no ordinary woman. She too had emerged step by step from the bloody storms of the inner quarters. It seemed Lady Jasmine's good days were ending. No, I had to pack my luggage and go to the capital to watch this excellent performance. Looking back on my 24 years, I realized that perhaps this was simply my destiny, to be born into such a family, to navigate such treacherous waters, and ultimately to find my own path to freedom. The game of the inner quarters had taught me much about human nature, about the price of survival, and about the value of independence. Now, with my wealth secure and my future my own to determine, I could finally live according to my own will rather than the schemes of others. As I prepared for my journey to the capital, I reflected on the lessons learned. Trust was a luxury I could no longer afford to give freely. Kindness without wisdom was merely weakness. And sometimes, the only way to win a game rigged against you was to change the rules entirely. My half-sister had underestimated the legitimate daughter of the Mortimer family, and the Ravens Hollow family had learned too late that some prey could bite back. The road ahead stretched before me, full of possibilities I had never dared imagine when I was trapped in that stifling marriage. For the first time in years, I felt truly free, and dangerously so. Lady Jasmine and her daughter had played their hand, and now it was time to see how my father's new wife would play hers. After all, every household needed its balance of power, and I was curious to see how the scales would tip this time. Perhaps it was time for me to stop being merely a survivor and become something more. A woman who controlled her own fate in a world that sought to deny women any agency at all. The game was far from over, but for once, I held all the winning cards. That's the story for today. Hope you enjoyed this incredible tale. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Subscribe for more captivating stories like this. And don't forget to like and share this video. Thank you for being here. See you next time.